This video will cover headstock veneer, tuner holes, and fret slots. Okay, our veneer is maple with a sticky back, and we want to align the better edge with the beveled end edge of the headstock. And as far as the rest of the positioning, as long as it's covering it, it's fine. So place the square edge right next to the bevel, and then secure it with a lot of pressure using a softwood block. Now we trim the excess with a utility knife. Takes a fair amount of pressure to cut through it. You can use multiple swipes. You don't have to be super precise because we're going to sand this later. You can trim any missed bits that way. You can also score it a few times and then just break off the piece of veneer. And it helps to trim the major pieces before you sand. So we're putting a beveled edge and just sand till it feels smooth. A small bevel will do it. And there's the veneer. Now we want to locate our nut slot. And usually there's some irregularity here. And the goal is to have the nut slot wipe out all the irregularity. So I use that combination square to find the beginning and the end of it along the length of the neck. This one was pretty darn straight, but others may not be. So just mark the beginning and end as a left and right side in that view, and then we're going to use the crosscut sled to cut our nut slot. So raise the blade. We want a blade height of 3/16 of an inch above the crosscut sled itself. So again, there's that depth rod that's sticking out 1/87 or 3/16. We hook it on a tooth and move the tooth forward and back over its highest point. Lower the blade until the depth rod starts to touch the wood. And that's a fairly accurate way of setting the depth. Okay, there's the mark we made. So we're going to set this in the sled, remove the stop block because that's in the way. And now it's a matter of lining up that pencil line with the slot that the blade will cut. So slide that over, and then we want to hold the neck firmly down and back into the fence. Turn on the saw, pass it through, and make sure you go all the way through with the sled until it bottoms out on those stops. Then turn the blade off, and you should have a nice clean slot with even edges both sides. Now we're ready to cut to drill the holes, but we need to lay it out pattern. So our tuner holes are 1.5 inches apart, starting from the nearer edge of the nut slot. If you're doing 4 guitars, then just pick 2 of your necks to make these marks at 1.5 inches, and then make a line through all your necks at once. So if you had 2 more necks, they would be in between those 2, and that's a quick way to lay out this pattern. Those are the tuner holes. The last line, that's going to be the end of neck line at 6. Okay, this one you have to do for each neck individually. We'll make a mark at 3/8 of an inch inboard from each edge on each end of the neck, and then just connect the dots so that you have 3 tuner locations. Now for the headstock pattern, you can do any pattern you like, but all the patterns will need to be cut on the back side of, or excuse me, laid out on the back side of the headstock because of the bandsaw placement. So we're going to transfer that 6-inch line to the back side. That's done here. And if you want to do the standard design, that's a chevron shape. So make a mark at 1 1/8 inches, that's the center line, and then that's a 1/4 inch back from that 6-inch line, and then you can make your chevron lines. Okay, now we need to lay out a few more holes. These are to hold the neck to the body. 15 1/8 of an inch from the near edge of the nut slot, and then mark that across the neck, and then these are a 1/2 inch inboard of each edge, and conveniently that 6-inch ruler is a 1/2 inch wide, so you can just use that for spacing. Okay, now go to the drill press, and for wood, any of the bottom row speeds would be fine. This is just a refresher on how to change belts or set speeds. So you hook the belts on according to the chart, push that lever back, and then lock that screw. That holds the tension. Okay, we want to make sure that those depth stops are out of our way for the headstock drilling. So it's helpful to lock them because they tend to walk down with repeated use. Okay, when you're using brad point drills that are shaped like this, these are for wood, and they're very good for wood, but they're only for wood. If you try them on metal, they'll dull instantly. Okay, there's the chuck key on the left side of the headstock casting, and we're installing a 1/4 inch drill. Okay, we're using this backing block so that we can support the back surface of the neck. You want to install it so that the neck's flat on it, the headstock is flat on it. And now for the vise, push on that knob to close the jaws, and then push that lever down. That will clamp whatever's in the jaws tight. Okay, now when you're drilling a long object, you want to make sure the object is to your left so that there's no chance it could hit you if it were to catch. And so now we turn the drill on, and I drill it first. I just peck with the center point to align myself with the crosshair, and then you can drill through. And in particular, you want to enter the wood very slowly because it tends to tear. You can see a little bit of a tearing there on the entrance. Once you're through the surface, the maple surface, you can go as fast as you like. Okay, and there's our 6 holes. If you do get tearing, this is a different neck. You can take a drill bit or a deburring tool like that and get rid of it. And next we need to do the blind holes for the joint. So here I am lowering the table a little bit to make room for it. And I need to set the depth. So put the drill bit down on the wood and hold it there while you spin this depth stop down, and the upper one as well. Okay, lock those together gently, and then check that they do indeed stop the drill right on the surface of the wood. Next, spin the upper nut up so there's a 9/16 space between it and the lower nut, and then spin the lower up nut to meet it. Lock those together. And now let's check that the depth stop will stop the drill bit 9/16 inch into the neck. Once you have that, then you can drill these 2 holes. So these are blind holes, not all the way through. And you can now install the inserts. So this takes a 6mm Allen key, and you hold the Allen key vertical like that as you start the process. That's to get them to go in straight. And this is a fairly awkward operation. Once you got them about 2 turns in, then you can switch the Allen key to the easier mode and sink those to the bottom. They should go a little bit below the surface. And you can sand it flat if there's any wood that's frayed up, or if the inserts didn't go all the way down. And there they are installed for a 1/4 20 thread. Here we are cutting the pattern at the end of the headstock bandsaw. So I cut just outside the line, and then I go to the sander to finish that. Okay, next, before we do fret slots, let's make sure our surface is flat. So go to the granite table, set your neck down, and check that it doesn't have any convexity. Concave is fine for that surface. Convex is not. And also, we don't want any warping or twist. So you want to see either no gap or about a 1/64 inch, and you don't want to see anything funny going on the diagonals that would imply a twist. So if it's not flat, or if it's not a 1/64 gap, with no twist, then you need to flatten it. So use this sandpaper and try to apply even pressure and carefully sand it back and forth a few times. Try not to take off too much wood, and you can check that until it's you've gotten rid of any convexity or any twist. Most of your necks won't need this process at all, but you do need to check it. Okay, now this is the template used for guiding our fret slots, and that aluminum bar is going to index into the nut slot, and that will locate our frets with those holes. So tape that onto the neck, and that center one is kind of optional, but it tends to help. That little pin is an index pin that will go into each hole, and that will cut the slots right where they need to be relative to our nut slot. So engage that pin in the hole, and the power switch for this is shown there. It's a toggle switch. When you turn it on, there will be a normal delay of about a second before the motor spools up. Let it come up to full speed, and then pass the neck through slowly. You can hear the motor bog down, and that'll tell you how quickly you can push. And for technique, clamp them together, the guide and the neck, and also push down. You want to keep the neck flat on the surface of this mini table saw so that the fret slot is full depth. Now, in terms of the number of slots, you can have any number that you like. Some logical numbers would be 7, 12, 14, 15, and 19. I usually do 15, and that's what I suggest if you don't care or aren't sure. I wouldn't do 19 only because the slots are easy, but the frets themselves are very time-consuming to make. And there are the fret slots, 15 of them cut across. And with that, your neck is ready for the CNC router.